UK Wine Show number 857. Wilco Lam on Martinborough, Wairarapa Wines and Why Wind Matters. Hi, my name's Chris Scott.
And I'm Jane Scott.
And together we founded 3050 and the UK Wine Show. UK Wine Show is the world's first wine podcast and we'll be celebrating 20 years next week. Today I'm sitting down with Wilco Lam. Well, it was in the sunshine in Martinborough back when we were in New Zealand. And Wilco Lam is the chair of the Wairarapa Winegrowers Association and the winemaker at Oraterra. Wilco spent the better part of 2 decades shaping some fine Pinot Noirs in the region. We get into the terroir, the tourism boom, and the varieties to watch from Martinborough. I hope your week's been good. I've had a fairly steady week. Monday was obviously a bank holiday Monday. Tuesday I was off recording a podcast for next week. As part of our celebrations for 20 years of podcasting, we've gone back to some of the very first people we interviewed, and one of the first people we interviewed was James Ellis. So I popped in and saw him, and I went through the same questions I asked him 20 years ago to see how his answers have changed. Along with that, I went down to Balfour on Wednesday and interviewed Owen Elias, and he was the third person we interviewed on the show as well, and we talked to him about what he's been up to in the last 20 years. What about yourself, Jane?
Well, I've been organising some of these interviews, but also getting ready for our Level 2 and Level 3 courses that are about to start in June. So sending out lots of wine and getting all the students enrolled for their exams. We still have some spots left on the Monday Level 3 course. This starts on Monday the 8th of June, and you can join in person at the Novotel in West London, or from anywhere in the UK. We'll send the wines to you at home, and you can log on to Zoom and join the class. If you are interested, it is only a week away. You can book online at 3050.co.uk.
Okay, Jane, well, let's get straight into our Patreon flashcard question for the show. And as always, if you're a Patreon member, you get access to 1 or 2 flashcard decks and between 1 and 3 multi-choice questions. Multi-choice questions change every day, and the flashcard decks change every week. This week's flashcard decks that the patrons have access to is a level 3 on Austria and a level 4 on Lambrusco.
Oh, I saw that. I'm liking that, Chris.
I decided that I will take the Lambrusco question since you are such a gun on Lambrusco now.
What?
Okay, Jane, what is the question?
Well, the question is, what are the 3 most important Lambrusco varieties?
Have you got any idea?
I think I have.
I bet you wouldn't have had it 4 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago.
Listeners, I am smiling a lot at this point.
Okay, we'll get your answer to the Lambrusco question at the end of the show. But next up, we've got the news.
Well, first up this week, wine producers around the world are watching weather forecasts closely as climate scientists warn that a potentially powerful El Niño could develop later this year. The weather phenomenon caused by warming sea temperatures in the Pacific Ocean can dramatically alter rainfall and temperatures across major wine-producing regions. Experts fear a strong event could bring drought, heat waves and bushfires to some countries, while others face flooding and increased disease pressure in vineyards. Australia is expected to be among the most vulnerable. El Niño conditions there are often linked to extreme heat, water shortages and reduced grape yields. Regions such as Barossa and McLaren Vale could see earlier harvests and lower production if dry conditions intensify. South Africa may also struggle with drought and water stress, while Chile and Argentina could experience heavier rainfall and flooding in some vineyard areas. California's wine regions face a mixed outlook. Wetter winters may help replenish reservoirs after years of drought, but excessive rain can increase mildew pressure and raise the risk of landslides in hillside vineyards. European producers will likely be less directly affected, although warmer summers and more frequent heat waves remain a concern for regions in France, Italy and Spain. At the same time, cooler climate regions, such as England, may continue to benefit from gradually warming growing conditions.
When we were in New Zealand, they were talking about the possibility of a super El Nino, and they were a little bit concerned about it, but things seem to be progressing, and now scientists are saying it's something like 86% chance of it happening, and if it does happen, it's going to be a big one, and there's a 90% chance it'll follow into next year. So it's looking like a very dry summer for Australia and New Zealand coming up this year. Maybe we should have gone to New Zealand then.
Because it wasn't great when we were there, was it?
Oh, it was all right at times.
Some of it was okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's get the next story, Jane.
Well, a strange story, seeing as we're experiencing extreme heat for England anyway this week, because winemakers across England are facing repeated severe spring frosts that have damaged young buds during a critical stage, raising fresh concerns over the 2026 harvest and adding further pressure to already rising production costs. At Black Chalk in Hampshire are reporting significant financial and operational strain, with frost protection spending already far above budget and staff working overnight shifts using fog machines and frost guards. Oastbrook Estate in East Sussex has also experienced patchy frost damage, with some vineyard areas hit hard, while others near woodlands remain largely unaffected. Meanwhile, growers continue deploying heaters, braziers and protective systems in an effort to limit losses as the season unfolds. Squareys in Kent suffered its most severe frost since 2017, though some producers remain hopeful that secondary shoots will recover yields, while others with advanced systems have so far protected vines successfully during the cold spell across key English wine regions this year.
As I said at the top of the show, I visited Balfour Winery and spoke to Owen Elias. He said they'd been hit by two big frost events and they'd burnt both the primary shoots and the secondary shoots. And looking at the vineyard, and I took some photos of it, it looked well behind where it was. I walked in the vineyard. I wasn't aware of the frost damage when I arrived yesterday. There was hardly any green shoots or anything going on, and I thought that was well behind. The thing about it is that a vine has a backup system. So if you do get a frost event and the main buds go, there is usually secondary and sometimes tertiary buds. If the primary shoot is killed, then the latent buds can break and produce these new shoots. Now, these secondary shoots do the same basic job, that is leaf growth and sometimes fruiting, but they're usually less productive. They tend to produce fewer and smaller grape clusters and often ripen later because of the affected lost time in the growing season. With those secondary buds frozen off as well, tertiary buds may or may not produce fruit. So for those people who have been hit from primary and secondary, they're not looking at a good, if any, crop this year. What's the last story, Jane?
Well, finally this week, London Wine Fair visitor numbers hit a 6-year high under new ownership. The fair recorded 10,539 visitors at Olympia, with attendance up 8.2% from last year's 9,741 visitors, marking the first time in 6 years above 10,000. The Monday attendance rose by 13.5% on last year. Under new owner Vindustrious, led by Hannah Tovey, exhibitor numbers also rose to 475 exhibitors from 445 last year. UK producers increased fivefold, reflecting strong domestic momentum and the success of the show's inaugural Host Nation initiative, which championed wines from Great Britain. The UK drinks trade made up 82% of visitors, but with 61 countries represented. And the top 5 visitor countries were the UK, Italy, France, the US and Spain. Vindustrious ownership and a management buyout signalled structural change, with the addition of a beer zone and an expanded spirits presence. Organisers reported stronger engagement across all categories and deemed the event a resounding success.
Of course they would.
Of course, but it was buzzing.
Yes, and we went on the quietest day, which was the Wednesday, the last day of the show, and seemingly Monday and Tuesday were much busier. But I'm actually quite pleased we went on the quiet day. I remember going to Excel years ago when the London Wine Fair was 25,000 visitors and 1,250 exhibitors. So it's like 3 times the size back then. So I remember going to those shows and you'd be there for 2-3 days and you're absolutely exhausted. Whereas we popped in, we had a few chats. I tasted a load of Albarino, Lambruscos, talked to key suppliers and went home. It was we were there for about 4 or 5 hours rather than days. Anyway, let's move on. It's Lambrusco Friday.
Woohoo!
This is our second last Lambrusco Friday, and we're starting to get into some of the more esoteric Lambruscos. This week we're going to be tasting an ancestral Lambrusco. It's by the winery Terry Viva, and the wine is the Berganti San Vincent. It is an Lambrusco del Emilio Rosato IGT. And it's a Fizzanti. It's a biodynamic wine with Demeter Association. And the wine is made, as I said, in a rather ancestral method. It's also had a bit of wild fermentation. So the first fermentation is a wild fermentation. The second one is the ancestral method. The wine is going down the very natural style. Normally they make very low sulfur additions to these wines, which is why it's got a crown cap on the top, which is a better closure if you're worried about oxidation. And the wine is 100% Lambrusco Sorbara. And let's have a look at what it is.
Let's get that cap off, Chris.
So no cork to remove, just a beer cap. It's not super light, but it's still deep rosé, I would have thought. What do you think?
Yeah, it's medium, the colour, the rosé. It is like a deep rosé, pale red.
It's probably the deepest Sorbara we've seen so far. We won't talk about the other grape varieties.
You can see it's Frizzanti, not Spumanti.
Okay, so it's quite a funk to it. It's got a bit of leather in there, a little bit of mustiness, less fruit than some of the other Lambruscos we've had. So that's coming back to that natural wild fermentation going on, and maybe a little bit of low intervention winemaking.
It's a little bit bitter. It's quite savoury, not very fruity. Quite an acquired taste, I would say, this one.
Yeah, it's certainly not my favourite. I don't mind wild fermentation, but sometimes when they're a little bit savoury, it can be not quite what you want.
It reminds me of the beers that we taste, like the Duchess beer, which is it's got the acetic
acid. Yeah. Actually, that's a really good description, I think, because when I was doing some research on this, people did describe it as like a Belgian fruit beer. And I think that is pretty much it, because it's got that sort of funky wild fermentation coming in there and the acidity coming through. And there is fruit there, but the main hit is that sort of Brettanomyces type flavour. So yeah, I think that's a really good description. One of the things I was shocked about is I did this week's Lambrusco flashcards. I haven't done them. I've been meaning to do them, and I hadn't done them. But I thought, I'll do them today. There's only about 35, 36 of them anyway, so it's not too bad. But one of the things that shocked me about Lambrusco was the yields. The yields are limited, but at around 126, 133 hectolitres per hectare, which is absolutely ginormous. I mean, you think about top Bordeaux at 30 to 40 hectolitres per hectare. We talk about Sauvignon Blanc being this high cropping, massive wine at 70 to 80. And the only other sort of wines that are that big are things like Carignan from the south of France, which are really, really big, high cropping wines. So you do get a lot of volume out of Lambrusco.
Do you think that's why it's been associated with a low quality, high volume wine, because they used to make so much of it?
I think so, yeah. I think so. You could just absolutely bang it out. All right, well, let's move on.
All right, cheers, Chris.
Cheers.
And looking forward to our final Lambrusco next Friday.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to actually drink this. Not because I wouldn't want to, but because I'm going to go for a long run in a minute.
We are recording at 9 a.m. as well. So yeah, good. Another reason not to drink it, Chris.
Rightio, let's get a reminder of this week's flashcard question, Jane. And hopefully all the listeners have got at least one Lambrusco grape now.
The question is, what are the 3 most important Lambrusco varieties?
Right, we'll give you the answer to that at the end of the show. But next up, we've got our interview. My guest today is Wilco Lam, one of the most experienced winemakers and viticulturists in the Wairarapa region in New Zealand. He chairs the Wairarapa Winegrowers Association and makes wine under his own label of Oraterra in Martinborough. Before that, he spent close to 14 years at the iconic Dry River Estate. We were recording this on a beautiful blue sunny day in New Zealand in February. Just like this week in London, it's been absolutely gorgeously hot, if not a little bit too hot for me, but I've got air conditioning in my studio, so I'm okay. Let's have a listen to what Wilco has to say. Hi, my name's Chris Scott and I'm here with Wilco Lam. How are you, Wilco?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. You're the first Dutchman I know that makes wine.
Yeah, there's a few. Not many.
The key thing here is you're the chair of the Wairarapa Winegrowers Association.
Correct.
And Wairarapa is a wine region just beside Wellington, and it includes probably the most famous wine region of Martinborough, which is where we are today on a beautiful hot day.
It's a gorgeous day.
Blue skies, everything. A little bit of a breeze, which helps keep the temperature down a little bit.
Correct.
And it is Waitangi Day, which is the day that in most countries you celebrate the forming of your country. Normally in New Zealand, Waitangi Day is a day of protest.
Pushback, really?
Pushback,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And recognition.
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting day in New Zealand's history. But what I want to talk about today is the Wairarapa and the bigger wine scene in Wairarapa. It's been 15 years since I've done a podcast on Martinborough, and that was with Palisa Estate and Martinborough Vineyards. But we didn't really talk a lot about the bigger region. Let's start off with where, I've given a rough idea where it is, but do you want to tell us exactly where Martinborough is, Wairarapa is, and sort of the climate and things like along those lines?
Yeah, sure. The region called the Wairarapa is towards the east from Wellington, in the bottom of the North Island of New Zealand. It is tucked between sort of two mountain ranges. Most of the vineyards are on the eastern side of the Aorangi Ranges for Martinborough, and they extend all the way up further north towards the Hawke's Bay. The Gladstone subregion and Masterton itself are sort of just north of the Martinborough area. So they follow largely the main river that flows through the region. That's called the Ruamahanga. Masterton is the northernmost region. Then in the middle we have Gladstone, and then in the south Martinborough. And even though that's tucked against that river called the Ruamahanga, the Martinborough terraces that the first vineyards were planted on here were all planted around a river called the Hoangarua River, which actually originates in the eastern hills here, which is sort of a lot more high calcareous area. So that's quite a pivotal river for this region in Martinborough.
When you say calcareous, you mean limestone?
Limestone, yeah. So a lot of that sort of underwater aquifers that feed the vines come from the hills here.
Oh, okay, so it's quite hard water, isn't it?
It's hard water, not good for your washing machine.
No, or your hair.
Oh yeah.
My wife's always complaining about how hard the water is in Twickenham and makes her hair not as soft and luxurious as she would like. The original vineyards in Martinborough were on dry riverbed though, wasn't it? It was.
Correct. So Atarangi, the late Stan Shifney, which is now Margrain, Martinborough Vineyards, Stan Shifney and Tikaranga, they were sort of really the four founding vineyards, or the first one to appear and to have planted. And they were all on what we now call the Martinborough Terrace, sort of the most northern part of Martinborough, probably with the most free draining soils that were created by that Hoangarua River.
And you used to work for Dry River. You were the head winemaker there?
So I looked after the business, the winery and the vineyards for about close to 14 years for Dry River.
And then they got sold off and you basically took the team here?
And then we took the team to where we are today, yes.
Yes, which is the...
This is called Oraterra, and what we would call our home vineyard now, the McCrenna block, which was planted by a guy called Jack McCrenna.
We'll talk about that at another time. The first vineyards going in though were originally in Masterton.
Correct.
Which is quite different. And I must admit, we did see some vineyards in Masterton as we drove through, but we didn't really see a lot of vineyards. Do you know roughly what sort of percentage of vineyards is in Masterton, Gladstone and Martinborough?
Oh, I'm not sure about the percentages. There's a few large investments in the Masterton region, also a few amazing smaller ones. I'm looking after one of them myself, actually. So there are some wonderful smaller blocks tucked in the hills on really interesting soils, some of them on riverbeds, but I think the majority is really focused on Martinborough and probably Gladstone purely for historical reasons, and not historical as in 150 years ago, but in the last 40 years when wine growing became more popular and the wines sort of got more attention worldwide as well. The original vineyard was in the back hills of Masterton by the Beecham family. We've actually tasted wine from there. Pinot 17, I think it was. That was an 1897 wine that was lying under one of the original homesteads that had the original vineyard there as well. Gosh. They don't exist anymore, the vineyards, but the wine was still there.
Normally when people taste really old wines like that, they go, that was an extraordinary experience, as opposed to that was a great wine.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly how you could call that one. Yeah.
How did it hold up? Was it turning watery?
It actually was orange. It looked like it was a sort of, what we now would call a skin contact wine. That's how it looked. And it was porty, but it had a really high acidity, so it was almost like a blend between port and maybe sherry. It was an interesting experience, that's right. But you couldn't sort of say, oh, this is a fantastic Pinot Noir from the Wairarapa or anything.
Nice. So there's a few blocks up in Masterton, but mainly Martinborough and
Gladstone.
Okay. One of the things that I've noticed is that we started our wine journey coming down the country at Gisborne, and Gisborne has no tourism for wine tourism, whereas Martinborough is all about the wine tourism. I mean, there is lots and lots of wineries based around the square, lots and lots of tourism. It's really quite boutique-y. If you wanted to have that boutique wine experience, you'd come to Martinborough and do that. Whereas Gisborne, there's absolutely no tourism, probably because Gisborne's quite hard to get to, and a lot of people don't really go to it, I imagine. But what's your experience with wine tourism around Martinborough?
The wine tourism has really grown maybe only in the last sort of 10, 15 years. But there were a few cellar door operators that started fresh. One of them was Poppies, and really set the tone with a cellar door focused wine business. Became very successful, set the tone for a few other people to actually invest not just money but also people and facilities that would cater for day tourism, weekend tourism.
Who was that?
So Shane and Poppy from Poppy's Wines. They were ex-Dry River as well, decided to start for themselves, and where a lot of people think about investing in vineyards and winemaking, their goal really was, let's invest in the sales facility, invest for where we actually can then make money and reinvest in the business and grow sort of in vineyard and wineries. So probably more logical, but not how people originally started their businesses here. And that was a fantastic example for other people to follow. It's like, okay, maybe if we become a bit more professional in how we sell wine, the business itself can follow and be successful, really. So that then ignited a whole influx of tourists here. And with 1, 2, 3 cellar door operators or hospitality operators, suddenly there's a reason for people to come and go around in Martinborough. And now there'll be few operators or producers who don't have a facility where people can actually go and sit down and have a glass of wine, or where the food is being served. So most people now look at Martinborough as like a fantastic opportunity to grow wine, but also to have a direct-to-consumer sales channel, really. And that is then adding to the success of the region, because finally there's a bit of a viable existence for people here with small family-owned operations.
Yeah, and the nice thing about that is one of the problems with all wine businesses is selling the stuff. You know, making wine is never as tricky as people think it is. It's actually selling it at the end of the day. So starting out with sales in mind and then growing to meet the sales is a much more sensible approach, perhaps.
Absolutely.
And not only that, if you're doing it cellar door, you get the maximum return on the business.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get any better, higher profit margin than cellar door.
Correct. And it's a really fast way to grow your brand, because obviously, you know, you have face-to-face contact with your consumers who will become, hopefully, you know, your best advocates back where, you know, when they go back to Wellington or Auckland or anywhere.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a good way to grow.
In America, there's a lot of direct-to-consumer, and they try and build brands through direct-to-consumer. Are you finding that once people leave Martinborough, they're targeting the direct-to-consumer market? So instead of going, oh, I like that wine from Oraterra, I'm now going to buy it in the shop. It's a little more like that you're going onto a list to get sold allocations. Is that sort of thing coming through as well?
Absolutely. So that initial face-to-face contact could be a lifetime allegiance to your brand with your consumer. So capturing the consumer there and being able to follow up with wine clubs or exclusive sales, or the pulling power they might have if they go out for dinner or to a wine shop and demanding for your wine when it's maybe not on the shelves. That's quite powerful too. And it's maybe really good to not have them in the shelves, because it means that they have to go to you directly.
But also boutique.
And boutique.
It's hard for them to, when I've been looking around New Zealand, I haven't had a really good look, but there seems to be a lot of, you know, you've got the supermarkets and those chains, you've got Liquorland and a few retailers which are high volume, and it'd be hard for Martinborough, boutique brands anyway, to be in those big distribution channels just for the volume and the price points that they're really looking for. And we've only really come across one or two specialist wine shops. And I'm not sure, is there a lot more specialist wine shops? I just haven't seen them, or?
They are definitely around, mainly in the larger regions. The specialist wine shops are definitely there, but then also with those specialist wine shops, you're competing with sort of specialty wines from elsewhere in the world, Australia, Europe. So then suddenly, say at a price point of $70, $80, you are competing with other brands at $70, $80. So either there's the commodity Liquorland or the New Worlds, or in the wine shops, they're just both different markets with different type of competition. So one on volume, the other one on price and quality.
Yeah. Let's talk about the wines that are being grown or made here. We've just tasted your wines. You have a Chardonnay, Pinot Gris and a Pinot Noir, but Riesling's also a common wine in the region.
It was, not so much anymore. It's gone into a little bit of an obscurity, and that's mostly because of sort of consumer preferences. They've shifted, I think, quite a bit. Riesling's always been that specialty grape that, that's where you find the real sort of wine lovers that have their little niches. But there's still quite amazing Riesling around, for sure.
Okay, any other grape varieties?
There is Sauvignon Blanc here, of course. It's a staple variety in New Zealand that I think is really important to producers' portfolio, recognizable for people, an easy to go to variety. Smaller varieties that people play with, Gewürztraminer, very, very obscure probably. There's a little bit of Pinot Blanc. Everybody's, I think, got their alternative varieties, their experiments to have something as the hook to their portfolio.
I heard there's a little bit of Syrah as well here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Syrah, beautiful. It's still, I think, the aim for more consistency is maybe a bit tricky with some of the variabilities in the years and the rainfall or the cooler years. But I've made some Syrah back at Dry River and are really, really beautiful. Yeah.
I normally think about Hawke's Bay when it comes to Syrah.
Yeah.
I remember Oz Clarke a few years back telling Marlborough that, you guys should get into Syrah. And I was like, they might be able to grow it and they might be able to make really nice stuff, but can they get the volume to make it economically viable? Because the cooler it is, the less you can ripen.
The longer you'd have to wait for the harvest, and maybe especially for a place like Marlborough, the focus is so much on Sauvignon Blanc. It'll be the smaller producers that probably will be able to make that more viable. But Hawke's Bay, fantastic consistency in their climate, heat units. They're very successful with their Syrahs.
Talking about climates, I understand Masterton has a little bit of frost risk as it's further away from the coast. Is that a serious problem for them? And do you guys have it here in Martinborough or in Gibson?
Absolutely. A frost risk, especially those on the valley floors in the springtime, is there. You would have seen the windmills that are scattered around in the vineyards. Generally, that really suffices to combat the frost damage. There is the odd year that they won't be able to do that with the specific type of frost that is not an inversion, so the hot air lies on the cold air. That is more a moving frost. Then it becomes harder. The windmills have been an absolute godsend for us to get better consistency in yield and less sort of impact by the damage by frost.
We're near Wellington. Wellington is known as Windy Wellington. Has anybody ever thought about using those windmills to generate electricity the rest of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. Many people ask, it's like, oh, that's handy, windmill, you can generate less electricity. The problem is they are not the same sort of build. But here too, you've got Windy Wellington, but we've got Windy Wairarapa just as much. And 120 to 140k winds are a reality for us, and that rips through. That can be quite damaging at certain times of the years. But that is exactly what sort of characterizes the style of Pinot Noir and the style of Chardonnay we see here too. That impact of the wind, we see that come through in the wines.
How does it do that? How does it impact the wines?
Tannin-wise, so it helps thicken skins, lowers the vigor in the vines. Vines have to be a lot more resilient in terms of combating, because a vine will shut down at a certain type of wind speed. So we definitely see that shutdown happening and the tannin build up in the skins. So we can turn that into a benefit, a regional characteristic for us.
Do you find the wind dehydrates the vines, the grapes as well?
Correct, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So would you say you get more concentration because of the wind, or and does that have an effect on if the vine's shutting down because of wind? And let's face it, it blows consistently. It's not like it's occasionally a strong wind. I was looking at the wind figures for Wellington, and it's most days, most of the time. Do you find that causes the vine to shut down? Because I noticed in your wines there was a herbaceous character, particularly to the Pinot Noirs.
I think the concentration, yes, but when a vine shuts down is all for the conservation of water, really, and for the vine then internally there's still processes happening. So I'm not sure if it adds to the concentration. I think the concentration more comes from availability to water, and with free draining soils, high wind, soils can dry out really, really quickly. So by the time that berry set happens, the region is generally in drought or in dry conditions, and that is the main reason I think we keep small berries here. So it's not until people decide to have an irrigation or that there is rainfall in that period, say around Christmas, New Year's time.
And the last question, we've been seeing Albarino coming through in other regions, and they've been tasting pretty good. Has anybody been playing with it around here?
I haven't seen any Albarino planted in the region here. How that grape variety would settle in, definitely Pinot Blanc here and Chenin Blanc that people have high hopes for, and I think they'd be wonderful varieties as well. Albarino, let's see, it'll be interesting.
Chenin Blanc's the other grape variety I've been looking at as we're coming through. I haven't tasted a lot of it yet. I've got a few bottles that I need to crack into. We've been buying a few and acquiring a few on our journeys. How are they tasting from Martinborough?
I think very promising. Atarangi here just released their first Chenin Blanc 2024 of actually an established vineyard. Margrain has planted a bit of Chenin Blanc, now Nawaka. So I think one of the more promising varieties for this region as an alternative to, say, Chardonnay.
All right then, Wilco, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, that ends our interview with Wilco and just almost ends the show, but we've just got to get the answer to this week's Patreon flashcard question. And Jane, the question was, what are the three most important Lambrusco varieties?
So the three most important are Grasparosso, Subara, and Salamino.
You've got them all wrong.
Oh, I have not.
You have, because technically
Lambrusco.
you've got to put the word Lambrusco in front of all the grapes. So it's Lambrusco Salamino, Lambrusco Sabara, Lambrusco Grasparossa.
Listeners, that is not fair, is it? That's really not fair enough.
Rightio, guys. I think that's a big zero zip for Jane. No, I think we'll be generous. I think you just got to remember that they do, and this is the thing that confused me when we were first looking at the wines and also the DOCs, because it's Lambrusco de Sabara, DOC, etc. And it's the same as the grape varieties. And I got really confused when we were first tasting these wines. But yes, a little bit of a trick there.
Well, I hope that's cleared it up for everybody, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. And don't forget to subscribe to the UK Wine Show wherever you get your podcasts. And a big thank you to our patrons for your ongoing support. And if you'd like to join our community, visit patreon.com/UK Wine Show.
Until next week, cheers and good drinking.
The UK Wine Show is a weekly podcast brought to you by 3050, the wine tasting company. The show is produced by Chris Scott and the news is read by Jane Scott. To listen to other shows, visit ukwineshow.co.uk. Thank you for listening.